thingy.
Happy New Year!
Oh my god! Oh. Wait, let's do that one more time.
No, it's perfect!
Happy New Year, then, I guess. All right, I have to mute my swearing out of this, I guess, or not. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Spooky Week. They startled me quite a lot just now, and you are joining us for a player-centered version of a conversation around what does it mean to have fear and spookiness and horror in your Dungeons and Dragons games or tabletop games in general. It doesn't have to be D&D. And so we can kind of explore different versions of that. And my hope in a conversation here with the lovely Rayna, the lovely Deanna, and the lovely Brandon is that we talk a bit about what does it mean from the player's point of view about dealing with scares and spooks in our games. So my name is Jake. I'll be helping kind of just ask a couple questions, but this is much more of just an open conversation. We pre-recorded this, so if you post questions in the chat, know that one of us is going to watch. We're going to take note of this, and we can have a conversation about this in a later panel sometime down in the future. We'll bring those questions in. And so glad to have you.
We'll talk about horror again.
Yeah, like we'll do a spooky Christmas.
Maybe before Christmas?
Yeah. I have actually well, we'll get to that in another point in time. So thanks for being and hanging out here. I guess I wanted to start off with all of us for just a moment thinking about when was your like favorite scary moment in a tabletop game? Like what position did you find yourself in, or a fellow player find themselves in? It didn't have to happen to you.
I feel bad because this was not streamed, and
That's
it is connected to a streamed show. There is I'm going to try not to spoil too much because we might talk about it in Spelljammer. I'm going to talk about, there was a moment in Max's character was completely paralyzed and trying to save an NPC that they cared about very much, and there were rolls, there was action that she could take, but she didn't quite manage to do it, and you could see everything that she wanted to do.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm trying not to say exactly what happened, but just...
This was in the prequel, right?
Yeah. It was when everything was going wrong. Like, there was a certain amount that was within Max's control, and then a certain amount where it was just, it is too big for you. This is something that you have no control over, and maybe you'll spend the rest of your life trying to get control over it, but right now you don't. That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, I think I will piggyback off of that and say like some of the most tense scenarios that I've found myself in as a player has been like timers. I hate timers. Like whether it be like physical timers like we have in Fate's End sometimes, or just like you have 3 rounds to do this thing and only 3 rounds, and like just the anxiety of like, oh my god, don't fuck it up, like trying to like just accomplish a task with, if you put any sort of timer in a game, that adds a lot of stress and anxiety to me.
Okay, that will lead to, I want Rayna to answer the question first, and then I have a lot of thoughts about that.
So what's distressing to me is getting through like an encounter and you're like, okay, that was terrifying, but it went well, and then there's more. It's like, and then you cut up the big bad. Oh, that was so great. That must have been so difficult. But oh no, looks like they're rising and they are reforming. Oh no, it's the Voltron of your worst fears.
Fake out.
Yes.
I'm going to jump on this for just a second. I just want to share briefly mine, and then Deanna, I want you to take it away and follow Brandon's thought process here. Rayna, I'm thinking about that more after the scary moment, right? You're like, oh God, I got to do more. Oh geez.
It's like, oh no. And I used up all my good stuff.
Yeah, I want to piggyback off of that. For you all, I don't know if you had seen it, but we had played in a game of a game system called Through the Breach, and during a show that we had called Twist of Veil, there was a moment where we were running around a scary asylum and like surgery place. It was horrifying, right? And it was scare after scare. And I was thinking to myself as a player, like, oh God, I'm just scared all the time. My character's just crumbling under fear potentially. And this moment stands out to me of where we had a moment of downtime. We were quiet. We were kind of planning. It was our moment as players to kind of like make our plan. And we were looking into a pit of bodies, and it was very gruesome. But the scariest moment was when a face pulled itself up from the bodies and was looking back at us and then sunk back down like the bloody creature from Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, right? It's like, I remember like just the uncertainty of what the hell was that, right? And there was a lot of like fear in that moment. But so I'm just naming my like kind of my scary moment. But Deanna, take it away. You had a kind of a pathway you wanted to go down.
Oh, I guess it's something we can talk about now, is when I'm thinking of what Brandon said about the timers and the stress associated with that. That feels like, where do we draw the line between the player being scared and stressed out and the character being scared and stressed out? Because I know as a player, nothing stresses me out more than a timer, but it doesn't make me scared. It makes me angry. I get so angry when there's a timer. I get so competitive. Where I wouldn't describe it exactly as scary of, oh no, I'm gonna die, or oh, I'm gonna lose this relationship, or like there's gonna be a consequence. I'm just like, oh, there's a timer and we have to win.
So fight or flight situation, you're definitely the fight, right?
Yeah. But I guess my question is more along the line of, do you want to draw a divide between my character is frightened and in a scary situation versus I myself am very stressed out?
Yeah, can I piggyback off of that and maybe reframe this question now and say, what was your favorite scary moment in a game? Do you think your favorite scary moment as a player character, like as your character being scared versus you? Can we divide that? And it's okay if you don't have one. I want to just set that on the table, right? If that's something that's just not coming to your mind. But
I just love when like your character's afraid of like an irrational thing. It's like, oh no, it's an army of frogs. Know how you love those. That was the one thing on my character sheet that they specifically do not love, and you knew that.
Well, Brandon famously does not feel fear in games.
I really don't. My characters are all heroes, bro. Like,
As
we got this.
He is actively dying. No fear. No regrets.
Oh, no. I take that back. There was one moment in Fate's End specifically, where we were in Prearia's her ancient home or whatever on the material plane, and there was this plant monster that grabbed Uri and drug him underwater, and there was a fucking timer because Laura DM'd me and she was like, yeah, so in 3 rounds, bro, you're gonna drown and you're gonna die. And I'm like, ah! And so Brandon was freaking out because of that, but also I think Uri, my character, was like, because that gave him a fear. I know y'all remember that gave him like a fear of water and drowning like for the entire rest of the game. Like
next time we had like costume changes, they're like, put water wings on his.
Yeah, and we did. We put water wings built in his little floaties. Yeah, and that just began his entire phobia of water for the whole series.
So Ermir got scared of water, right? Rayna, you're talking about a character being scared of frogs. I guess, and Deanna, if you have a thought to this too, but I think there is something really curious about when are we as players with timers and stuff being scared because we're like, oh God, we don't have much time. And then what happens when we make our characters scared of stuff?
I find the moments that really stick with me the hardest are ones where the consequence isn't so mechanical, like you're going to lose a lot of hit points or you're going to die. Like the moment that I'm thinking of, probably the most scared I have been, and definitely the most scared that Esperise was in Fate's End, was going to tell Luden that she had sworn allegiance to Levi. I was so scared. Because the consequences are not like, oh, my hit points are docked forever. It's, oh, this person that you really, really care about is never going to think about you the same way again. It's a very emotional consequence, I guess. Because my favorite horror stuff, like my favorite horror movies, are always like, what do people become when they're pushed to a certain limit, and how do we treat each other, and that kind of thing. So that's what I get excited about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go for it, Rayna.
I know, saying I feel like that is definitely like a higher stakes situation, especially in like role play heavy games like we have. You get stabbed, just like, oh, I took a potion, it's fine, no lasting consequences. I've lost the trust of my friends. That just keeps going.
Yeah, when I'm thinking about the descriptions here, and I mean, I think we're now already finding another subcategory, which is like, what is scare and fear in a high action game? And I think timers come into a huge play there, right? Where you're like, I only have 3 turns before that door shuts, and I'm gonna be locked in this room. And then Rayna, you're saying like, in heavy role-playing games, it's the, oh, I really faux pas that. Oh God, I swore my allegiance to a god that Ludin really hates, and I'm gonna have to go talk to him, right? So I guess like I'm kind of curious, and I'm inviting other people to push back. I'm just throwing questions out here, right? It's like, what do you as a player gravitate towards? What do you find resonates with you more, and that you find more enjoyable or fun post the experience? I know during it it's stressful, but like I'm thinking afterward, you're like, yeah, that was so good. Or if you like watching it, other people deal with it. Right? Is it timers? Is it maybe the role play side of, oh God, this conversation's gonna go so bad? What, you know, or Uramir drowning and then later getting floaties, you know? It's like, what, I guess I'm floating out here. What do you each individually resonate towards and gravitate towards as something you find fun when it comes to fear?
Character development.
Yeah.
I think like to a lesser extent, you know, with Uri and the floaties, but I think like to piggyback off of what Deanna and Rayna were saying, like, you know, having to deal with those consequences and seeing how those decisions or those experiences like change the way that you envisioned your character going, you know, like, because I think it pulls a different level of role play out of you when you have to like react to another player reacting to a decision that you made, you know, or you know, even like, you know, the world reacting to a decision that the party makes, like, are we the villains now? Like, you know, and then like it just having to kind of like, you know, just improv that and be like, okay, how does this feel? It feels more raw and like in the moment for stuff like that, like you see it happening in real time instead of like having time to like think about like what your character's going to do like between sessions and stuff like that. It's like boom, right here in the moment where this is happening right now, you know, and like the ramifications of that.
I also think you can tell a lot about a character by the things they're afraid of. That's always a fun little peek.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm thinking about fear and I'm gonna and telling a lot about a character, right? Because I think character development with fear is so fun. I personally, and Brandon, I'm hearing you mention it too, right? It's just like that either you're reacting to it or it's initial. The fear of frogs. What does that fully look like? Brandon, I'm gonna playfully call you out. The character you made in Spelljammer had a fear and seems to still have a fear, but it hasn't come back up. And so, you know, I'm curious about, right, when in your player character development, and Rayna and Deanna jump in with your characters too, like when did you decide I'm going to put a fear on a player character is a way to help develop that person out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that all characters, you know, in order to make them more three-dimensional, they need like a flaw of some sort. And I just thought it was a really cool way. And Deanna's getting all the spoilers for Leon over here.
I know. Let me just break these down.
Well, I just thought that like positioning himself, I knew how I wanted to play him as like, really, really bravado-esque and like nothing phases him. And like, he's just this all around awesome leader. He always does the right answer to everything. And I just thought it would be a really cool dichotomy to like for him to have like this thing that's like kind of make that like the secret driving force behind all of those decisions in a way. I just thought that like playing that out would be cool because whenever it does inevitably come up, I think it'll kind of change the way that the party and hopefully the audience looks at Leon,
What I love, can I just say, just audience for just a moment, I was referencing more lighthearted fear than what I think you're referencing.
What were you talking about? His fear of our spider?
Yeah,
spider
I think
girls?
I understand.
Oh, I went so far left with that. Yeah, no,
I loved it though.
yeah, no, he's scared of spiders too, y'all. Yeah.
But that's just because both Brandon and Jake are very scared of spiders in real life. And then Jake's like, yes, now we have a very cute spider thing on the boat all the time.
I love this moment because Brandon, I think you're bringing up, and Deanna and Rayna, I want to hear from you about these thoughts, right? But I just love this moment for me because I'm Brandon's GM and Spelljammer, that I'm like, Leon has indicated a fear of spiders, and then Brandon's like, that fear's gonna define him for the future, and it's like, how am I gonna use spiders?
Wait, yeah, we were on two vastly different pages.
Yeah, it was so good. I was like, I don't know if that does define him or not in my book, but sure, okay.
Yeah.
Damn, how far does the spider thing go?
Right. Yeah. No, when I was a child, when Leon was a child, he was locked in a box full of spiders.
Oh my God.
But okay, I guess to actually answer your question, I think I don't like spiders. So I think that was just just a little thing that I threw in there. Like everybody's like in love with this thing, and I'm like, it's a giant dog-sized spider. No, absolutely not. Like that thing probably looks terrifying. And then you sent me a picture of it with the long neck on top of like the the thing just looks.
No. I'm gonna bring up. I managed to convince Brandon a little bit because I have Franklin here in my sketchbook. I made them much cuter. Let me see if I can find them in here.
That's right.
Searching them up.
While Deanna's looking at it, Rayna, anything else to this? Like, I mean, of like the way that you're, I think what I'm hearing maybe applying.
I can't see.
Hey, wait, it doesn't. It's the
Oh,
background.
no.
It's taking over.
I'll put it on the Twitter.
Wait, everybody must all react terrified. Oh God, no!
He's kind of cute.
I thought it was supposed to be cute, right?
He's adorable.
Yeah, Rayna and Deanna,
Too many
I guess,
legs.
like thoughts too about applying fear, or and again, like I think we're on this track a little bit of like player character versus personal fears. Brandon's merging a bit of it with spider fear, and I guess I wanted to hear from you two. How are you thinking about that when you do it in game and out of game?
I mean, I think that like fear is a great place to start when you're designing a character, because like you can't like really get into like who this person is without thinking what would be worst case scenario for this character, like what, or at least that's how I think about it. To kind of get to know who this person is that I'm supposed to be.
I love that. You build them so that they can suffer.
Yeah, I build them trauma first.
Yeah, trauma first. Yeah.
I have a similar approach, and I think Jake, I think I might have learned this from you, or you gave words to it. But the way that I think about this is that often with a character, I'll start with some fundamental belief that is harmful to them, that could be thought of like a fear. I know, like Esperise, a fundamental belief that she has is that there is something deeply wrong with her. And her entire personality and so many of her goals and so much of her and what she thinks about the Feywild and everything like that is that there's something deeply wrong with her. And she believes that. And it's grown outwards from there. And I think when you bring that to a horror level, like that can be immensely scary. There is something wrong with you. You don't know what it is. You cannot get rid of it. There's something wrong with you from the inside. It's very scary.
The fear that like that might actually be true. Like, yeah.
It's like, or like the metamorphosis or whatever. It's like, you're fine. I'm a cockroach. Like, no, you're good.
I think for Esperise, she fundamentally believed that the Fae were an evil, selfish race, and that she was one of them, and that she was going to behave in an evil way, and she was going to make selfish choices because she wasn't capable of doing anything else. She believed that fundamentally she wasn't able to be good because of who her father was. I like to build from that direction because then you get to be sad.
But it's all right. Then you become the mother of hags and you embrace it.
Yeah. Right after she sorts out all of her daddy issues too. It's like, yeah.
She's like, oh,
but now I'm doing it because I want to.
That means this is fine.
Yeah.
I believe, Jake, you call it the lie that you believe. Is that what you...
Yeah, from different character development books that I've read, the term that is used is the lie that a character believes.
Interesting.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's how I'm gonna build my next character.
We're going so deep. We're not going like spooky. We're going like my fear.
Let's talk about trauma.
Well, let me hard pivot for a second and just check in, right? In about trauma, because I think that we're talking about, like, Rayna, you said, like, I build my character trauma first, right?
Yes.
Which is great. And Deanna's like, I build them with a lie that will destroy them. You know?
It will make them worse people.
And Brandon, you're mentioning, right, that like 3D to become what is more holistic. I think most everyone in the world has fears, and our characters have fears too, of soft, what maybe we could term as like soft or hard fears, like soft fears being an irrational fear, and hard fears being a fear that might crush me in some way and break me. I guess I'm kind of curious, how do you all, or what moments have you seen at tables, have you experienced yourself, or what do you wish for in a perfect world of playing with fear, where it can be semi-scary or maybe even traumatic in some way without crossing a line? And I'm phrasing that weird, so help me rephrase that, right? Help me out. But, there's something about it, like, it's fun to be scared. And then there's a moment where maybe you're like, it's not fun anymore.
What's your favorite method of exploring, I guess?
Yeah, I love that.
I love a good nightmare sequence. Where it's just like everything is terrible and it's very surreal and it's happening to you.
Are you thinking of the tree with you and Finalai? Was that a nightmare?
Oh my god, yes, that was great. Also, like the tea situation. It wasn't so much horror as like with Esperise's the church thing, and it had the tea. It's not like so much a fear.
In a literal Earth space. You are beyond reality.
Just you're being confronted in the biggest, most bombastic way with the things that you're afraid of, and like maybe you're reacting a little weird because it's a dream. Maybe you've got dream logic going on, but like,
do you find that you tend to prefer, because like there's kind of two ways that can go, right? Is that you have a nightmare and then you wake up and it doesn't have any consequences. Yes. It's just terrifying in the moment. Or do you prefer it's a nightmare and it has real consequences? It's like Esperise's tea, there were no real consequences, but that tree, you were almost dead.
That's true. I don't. I think both can be interesting in how your character like walks away from it. Mm-hmm. Either way, you're different on the other side.
That's so cool.
I think like seeing it happen to like another character or like an NPC that you really care about, like feeling, I think like feeling helpless and not being able to do anything is like one of the ways that I like to, one of the best ways that I've experienced fear before. Like just the helplessness of like, this thing is creeping up on it, or like this thing is happening to this character, and you just kind of have to like let it happen or just like watch it happen. And just like that feeling of hopelessness and helplessness is just like jarring, but in a good way to me anyways.
That's something that I actually really want to jump a lot more into, because it's something I've been thinking a lot about when it comes to horror, is like decisions and choices versus helplessness. Because I agree, I was talking about it earlier with Jasmine, how that helplessness is what made the moment so scary. But like the scenario of like you and your level 1 party walk into a red dragon lair and you're completely helpless, that's not scary. That's just unfair. My thought is that there has to be a certain amount of decision and choice to get you to where you are helpless, and then it's scary. Like, how do you guys balance?
Ooh, yeah, like you have agency and then there's still nothing you can do.
Ooh. Or like a decision that you make, like you were saying, like with Esperis and Luden, like a decision that you make is like inevitably going to cause like distress or something terrible to happen. Yeah, I think I prefer there to be I don't know. I guess from a horror standpoint, I think having to make a choice is probably the worst thing, which I guess makes it like the best thing, right? Like, because when you are positioned with this choice of like, you know, like either this something bad happens or this something bad happens, or like, you know, you can get this thing, but then there's going to be a consequence. Like, no matter how like amorphous that consequence might be, like just knowing in your heart, like, this is my fault. I did this and I can't fix it. Like that touches on like true horror to me.
Back in Through the Breach, I can't remember exactly the scenario, but Brent presented Nemo, my character, with okay, you're in this situation, 2 people are in danger, you can help one of them, who are you saving? Which is like, yeah, you definitely have a choice. It all sucks. It all sucks and is bad.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the worst. But like, it goes again, but like between like your feelings about things as a character and your feelings about things as a player. Because as a character, it sucks. But as a player, you're like, oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Oh, that's delicious.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's also the balance with, like, I feel like as a character, I want to feel helpless, but as a player, I want some. I'm a control freak, but you know.
I want to build off of this because I think there's, Rayna, I love what you just said there, right? Because it's like, and we're going to have a GM panel, but I think this panel, which in all likelihood may air earlier, or it might be the day after. We'll find out, right? We don't know, and we'll let you know. I'm really curious because, like, when you're thinking to yourself, like, oh God, I'm helpless, or oh God, I have to make a choice, and this sucks, right? How do you, as a player, in the past, have you given yourself a little bit of space to start separating player character versus yourself, to be able to go, oh, that's awesome, but this sucks so much, right? To have that moment of clarity. How have you helped yourself do that? Or have you noticed other people helping you or each other out with that? Right? Because I think I'm framing it this way because I think sometimes you can get like, in that moment, you're like, oh, I don't know what to do. And then you're paralyzed, or it sucks and it's not as fun. And like, how do you create space there to make it fun? How do you infuse those bad moments with even bad fun? Like fun where you're like, ugh, no. You know what I mean?
Honestly, I feel like we're the perfect 3 because of Fate's End and how every character has to make dire like choices and just deal with it.
That's really, it's hard to explain it there, because I am famously, and by famously I mean famously to Jake, I hate losing. I will negotiate my way out of losing. I would like to win the situation however possible. But when it reaches, I'm thinking that I'm going to emotional beats for some reason, because that's how I'm dealing with fear. But recently, Esperis and Finnell, I broke up. And I had so much, don't make that face, Jake. I had so much fun, and Danny had so much fun, even though our characters were having such a bad time. And I think a lot of it is the trust of, we know that we're both building a story together and we're going to be here and the trust between the people in the scene, I guess. I don't know if I'm explaining it properly, where it's like, we are in here together, we know where we're kind of going, and we'll see what happens, and we've kind of pledged to have a good time anyway. Does that make any sense? I don't know.
Yeah, I think it does. I think trust is a big part of how to do it in a good way. Cause like when it's a lot easier in moments when okay, for example, right? Like in the early seasons of Fate's End when um when we were fighting the mother of hags and Uri had to make his choice, right? And everybody, spoilers for Fate's End, by the way, but this was like almost a year ago, so if you haven't watched it, then it's your fault. But like everybody in the Undercity died, and immediately I messaged Laura. I was like, what the fuck, man? Like, what's going on here? And stuff, because like it was so like I had no idea that was what was gonna happen, right? Like I knew that like more people were gonna perish, but I didn't know like everybody was gonna perish. And so I think like that affected me as like, as Uramir and as myself, because I was like, sheesh, man, like what do I do with this? But like I think like, moving forward, like what, like, being like, hey, okay, now we're gonna do this, then we're gonna do this, and blah blah blah, and like just kind of seeing like, talking with your DM and seeing how things are, gonna go and stuff. It's like, okay, all right, reel it back a little bit, you know what I'm saying? Like, okay, we're good here, whatever. Like that kind of, it opens up space for like more, it opens up space for the player to have fun, even though your character necessarily isn't, like, and I think like having that trust in other players and in your DM is like, it's like, okay, it makes it feel more like a roller coaster and less like a death trap. You know what I mean?
I feel like you really need that push sometimes to, like, as I said, kill your darlings. Like you get a story in your head, you get a character in your head, and then your DM's like, I'm going to do stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, I need you to trust me, but all your plans are gone now. And you're just like, okay.
Like, yeah, bad things are gonna happen. It's like, oh, okay, all right, because in that particular moment, like, I think everybody kind of thought like we were being the heroes, and there were gonna be a couple of martyrs, and it's like, no, actually, that's not the case at all. Yeah. But like just making sure that you have like that clarity of like Rayna just said, like, like this, like, okay, this is a kill your darlings kind of game, it's like, oh, okay, all right, don't get too attached because you might Game of Thrones somebody and then like anybody can get it at this point.
Hello, you are Ned right now.
Yeah, just like knowing what kind of a world and what kind of an atmosphere you're in, basically.
Yeah, that's kind of a question I have, because I feel like it's almost a spectrum, because there's like you and the DM talk about, okay, here's a kind of a scene by scene what we're going to do next session, versus the DM doesn't tell you anything, it's all completely a surprise. I feel like somewhere on that spectrum is, the world, you're playing Game of Thrones, you kind of know what's going on, you know what the consequences could be like, and play with that. Do you guys tend to fall there? Do you like things a little bit more explained, a little bit less explained? Is it scarier if you have no idea what's going on, or does that lose you a little bit?
Right, I'll let you go.
It's definitely scarier not to know, but then I need time to process a complete surprise. So immediately after that, I'm like, all right, that was really cool. I'm going to be quiet for like the next 20 minutes while I rearrange everything.
Yeah, I think I don't as a player, I don't like being left completely in the dark. I think I need to I don't want to be spoiled either. I think, like you said, it's a spectrum, right? I think I like to be more on the like, okay, this is a Game of Thrones type game. Everybody knows what that means, so that's pretty much all the information I would really need. Like, I don't think it needs to be so granular as to like, hey, this might happen, this might happen, this might happen, because then that kind of takes away from the fun of being surprised and stuff. But I think like knowing, I guess, like what sorts of surprises you could expect and knowing like what level of intensity those surprises may bring, I think is an important thing.
Yeah, like, I like things that Lauren does, and like even when we were doing Witchlight, Deanna, when you just be like, hey, if something were to happen to your character and say this was the outcome, like what might that scenario look like? Like just be thinking about this. When's it coming? Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Just sometime in the near future, things are
There's
happening.
some stuff coming. You don't need to know what it is, but just prepare yourself for this genre.
Right. Yeah. That kind of stuff. Just a little, you look on the back of the book and it's got the little like warning,
Yeah.
A little
like,
Surgeon General.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go for it, Deanna.
I always like, I think it's very helpful when a DM is like, hey, we're heading into your character's hometown. You maybe want to reread your backstory, remember your siblings' names, just things that are like, got it, thank you. That's helpful.
Like, okay, I'm dealing with my father issues right now.
Yes.
Thank you.
What is my dad's name? Okay, let's come up with that.
This makes me think about something. I don't know if you've all heard about it, right? But with character death, there's like a theory out there. There's death number 0, 1, and 2, or I think that's the rating. 0 being like you trip on a rock, or a rock falls from the sky, hits you in the head, and you're dead, and you had no sort of agency over the idea that your character died. There's character death 1, which is like the middle ground here of you made a bad decision and inevitably you died, but you also didn't really have a lot of like ownership over that death. It was like you kind of got put in an either or situation or a bad die roll. And then you have like version 2 where it's like you, the player, know that the decision you're making is a bad idea. You've fully bought into the idea that you're gonna die or not, right? And you're into it. And that is like I think in GM theory, kind of an argument to say like that is generally the death you're looking for because players feel more comfortable with that process of like, I had some agency in knowing that I was going to die. And in that framework, and you might not buy it, so feel free to reject it, right? But I'm kind of curious if there's a fear version of that. There's a spectrum modeling, right, that you could say that says like, Rayna, you're saying like it's scarier not to know, right? But like to what extent, you know what I mean? Is it like fully I'm surprised by this to I had an inkling this was going to happen to I leaned into this fear. You know, I'm using just 3 tiers there, but yeah, I'm pitching something here and I just want your thoughts or rejection. So
you're saying like the level of prior knowledge, basically.
Yeah.
I think level 2 is probably the best, but that's just because I'm like Thanos, balance within all things, right?
Right.
And I think if you know too much, it's not scary, and if you don't know anything, then and you're blindsided, and maybe this is just me as a player, I feel like when you're blindsided by stuff, it's not really fun. Like
It's not satisfying.
Yeah, it's not as satisfying, right? Because like at the end of the day, everyone's kind of telling the story together. So when it feels like this is like an on rails thing, or like a like you're watching a cutscene and not playing in the game actively, then that could be kind of whack. But the flip side of that coin is like when if you know everything that's gonna happen, then you're kind of manufacturing the fear anyways, right? Like it's like, oh, okay, this is the part where I'm supposed to be scared, so let me act scared. Like I think and sometimes it's difficult, but I think you got to find that sweet spot, right? Like right in between where it's like, like Deanna was saying, like, hey, might want to look at your backstory because some stuff's about to happen, and you're like, oh, I don't like how they said that. Let me flip through and look at all the stuff, so that way like you're kind of on edge, and that brings in like genuine kind of anxiety and fear, right? You're like, why like like a prank, why are you asking about all of my siblings? What? They're fine, they're in the Feywild, they're chilling. It doesn't happen with it.
Have you had what? No, nothing.
Yeah,
I'm gonna make an argument for fear 1.5 between 1 and 2, because I do think 2 for death, I think 90% of the time version 2 is the best because death is a huge thing to happen in a story. But I think 1.5 is kind of between again, I think it's the DM has set the tone, has given you the vague idea, if you move in this direction, this is the vibe of what could happen, and then the player makes the choice to go in that direction. I think after that point, anything that happens feels earned. Like, even if they don't say, you die if you go through that door, like, you know. I think building that up without specifically going, okay, so you have to choose whether or not you're going to da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Even if you don't know exactly what you're choosing, as long as a choice was made, it feels good. Does that make sense?
Yeah. When's your favorite time when fear has been, like, a scary moment has been flagged for you? It's been prompted. I'm hearing a lot about, like, hey, what's your family's name? Let's remember the people in your hometown, right? Do you recall a moment when you were a player where you recall a GM or another player helping flag fear, like saying helping set that tone at the table?
I'm just trying to think of everything Danny has ever done. Thinking.
I wouldn't say there's a specific moment.
Yeah.
But I think that, like, there is an art to building tension, both in and out of the game. Like, it could be something as simple as, like, hey, be ready, like just a little drop, like, or it could be like actually in game where you're like, you go back to your hometown and it's deathly quiet, and like you don't hear anything. It's like the usual
Gordon's
bustling.
really good at building scenes like that to where you automatically know, oh, something is wrong here.
Yeah, right. But you're not quite sure what it is, like just anything where you can like set the mood without saying, hey, this is what it is, right? And I think it leaves room for that sort of like exploratory, like, okay, how screwed are we? Like how bad is it? Let's go see. And I think that's a very organic way of building that sort of anxiety. What's up?
I want to hear from Deanna, but I want to like maybe complicate this just a little bit too, which is to say a lot of what I maybe am hearing of like tone setting, I think falls in the GM world. When can players do it?
That's exactly what I was going to say. It's like, what can players do to also help set that tone? Is it just buying into what the GM is putting down? Or is there stuff where a single player can shift the tone of an entire scene? How do you do that as a player? And then I'll think about how I do that, because I don't have an answer to my own question.
I'm
thinking.
No, I think it's a really solid thinking. I'm gonna ramble for a minute, and all you three feel free to ignore me or not, right? But I would say, like, I want to just draw on the example of coming to your hometown that's definitely quiet, right? I'm just thinking about, like, that might be a tone set, like even a seed planted by that GM, right? But if I were a player, I think something that is helpful in tone setting that I've seen players do really well, I've seen each of you, I think, do this super well in the games that you've played, is turning to another player and naming some of the tone that's being set by going, why is it so quiet here? I don't necessarily recognize that person. As a player, you're bringing someone else in or a whole group in, and you're reinforcing the tone, right? Or you as a player might come in and go, and this is pre-GM weighing in, and hopefully the GM can pick up on it, and yes, and you might go, when did that building get there? Right? And you add a scene element, and the GM goes, perfect, right? Yeah.
I'm thinking of kind of in collaborative storytelling, right? Which is essentially all tabletop gaming is collaborative storytelling. But like, even so, the DM says you're going to one of the party members' hometown and it's eerily quiet. And like, I can kind of see two branching paths. One is that that player goes, must be setting up late this morning for market, and is steadfastly like ignoring it, and then it falls on the rest of the party. It becomes that dynamic of, are we gonna talk to him? Like,
Yeah.
if it comes to, oh, something is very wrong. Or the player can just be like, oh, I shut down, I start looking for clues. And then it's up again to the rest of the party to, like, work with them, help shine the spotlight on that character and their fear in how we collaboratively react to the environment, I feel like.
Yeah, like he'll enter a scene and you're like, huh. It's like, what? Oh, you notice there's like a ball on the floor. Anything weird about that? Like, nope. That's where that is. No one's supposed to be playing with that? Nope. That's how it's always there.
I'm thinking, like, you know, if like nothing to me is more unnerving than like a character preparing for something that you don't know what they're preparing for. Like to like, okay, so like, you know, the hometown's deathly quiet and it's like the wizard just starts casting spells. Like, all right, I'm gonna cast Mage Armor. It's like, wait, why are we in initiative? What's going on here? Like,
to talk about somebody else's D&D show. In Critical Role Campaign 2, when they get to what we find out is Knott's, like, home village, and she starts, like, storming around, knocking on the door, saying, where is my son? And everyone just going, because nobody else knows what any of this means, except for the one player. I always think that's so fun.
yeah.
That's such a good time.
I think there's something, so it's something, a through line here that I'm noticing, right, in terms of like flagging fear. And one thing that we're maybe noting that is really, and see if you guys agree with this, right? But like noting that is effective, especially from player characters, is what I'm hearing is somebody making a definitive action. Whether it be the person coming into the town, that wizard going, oh, Mage Armor, okay, I'm getting scrying ready to go, right? I'm like prepping, and that's a definitive action for others to react to. It might be not from Critical Role, running around knocking on doors. It might even be talking to that shopkeeper and saying, or the Rayna, your reference of the ball, right? Where you're like, why is that ball rolling there? And there's that, I think what there's something to be said about pacing here, where I think fear and tension can slow burn, but also there has to be something definitive happening in some way too, at least even in the smallest scale of why is that ball there and why is it rolling towards us is an action, right? And so I think player characters, when they take actions of some kind and some scale, help ramp tension.
I want to flag about that ball specifically. It made me think of the number one way to scare any D&D player is to put an inanimate object in the room and just say, oh, and in the center of the room, there is a rug. Lose our minds!
Yeah.
Why is the rug?
There's a door. What?
Why are you mentioning the rug?
Yeah.
What's under it?
It was important enough that it was in the description. What's going on with that rug? I investigate the rug.
Yeah, Brandon had the nerve to put a door somewhere. Like we weren't gonna immediately try to bust it open. Like, what's back there? It's like nothing. It's just a door. No. I don't trust like that.
I feel like tabletop role-playing game players, wow, that's long, are such ideal horror story candidates because they're always like, yes, I go into the basement by myself. Like, they're just like, I'm gonna do the stupidest shit imaginable. Let's go!
So something I want to I guess I want to open it up before I jump anywhere else. I'm kind of curious. Like, I think we're talking a lot about like the ways that player characters can participate. We've talked a bit about especially the key of building tension or you know, flagging fear. You have this thing, I love this conversation of how do you make dire choices and deal with it, right? Which I loved so much. I guess, is there other topics and other things we're kind of curious about? We have so many different ways to go, but I'm also watching the time and I'm helping kind of manage our time here a little bit. And I have a little bit of a fun game that I want to do at the end of this real quick. So, yeah. Is there any other questions or topics that we have for each other as we think about our roles as players at our tables and being scared?
Not off the top of my head. If you give me a minute, I can come up with one.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah.
Then the major question that I came in with is how to balance helplessness as being scary versus helplessness as being annoying in a game. Because I know I get very upset if it feels like, well, this is just happening to me. I have no hand in it. But we've talked about that at length. But that was the main thing that I was thinking a lot about.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's an ongoing conversation. I'll be curious to bring that same question up to the GM panel. Yeah. I have so many thoughts about that. I think I'm one thing I would want to bring up. I'm just trying to keep in the player character mindset of helplessness, and I love the way I think Rayna, you framed the question: how do you make dire choices and deal with it? Right? It's both maybe a player and a player character, but it's in helplessness. I think one way that player characters can help each other not feel helpless is to cheerlead, to pay attention, and to support that person in that moment, and like name that any decision, small or large, that the GM is creating space for, is important, right? Because and Deanna, see if that sounds right? But like I'm thinking about the example you gave of this moment that happened to Jasmine. Jasmine couldn't do anything, was paralyzed, and was given a chance to do something, and it is marginally small in this grand scheme. But there was a sense at that table that was the biggest decision. And as a player, even when we're maybe laying there defeated or standing in a room and there's a rug and we're like, shit, there's a rug, and we're freaking out, like any decision, a perception check, anything, if our friends all are like, do that can, I think, can help alleviate a sense that we can't do anything.
I think fear in a game, much like almost anything else in a tabletop game, comes down to buying in.
Yeah.
I'm like, yep, I buy into it. I'm there, man.
You kind of have to. Like, I think, to piggyback off of what Jake was saying, like, I think it takes a serious understanding of your character. Like, I know I'm really freaking out in a situation when I'm like looking, like flipping through my character sheet and looking at all of my spells, like there's got to be something, there's got to be a feat that I took, something that I can do about this. And just the feeling of dread when it's like, nope, if only you were a high level higher, or if only you had like, if only you were taking that feat instead of that ASI, man. Like,
Your hubris is your downfall.
So I guess like it's not necessarily like hopelessness, but it's like, like I think when you can think of something that you can do or that you could do, like, if circumstances were just slightly different versus like just not being able to do anything. Makes sense.
Yeah. I feel like there's a charge that is given, like a deal cut to a GM in this moment as a player character, right? Where I'm like, I'm going to make a decision. Please yes and me, or yes but me. Don't just say no, right? And give me at least one. Sometimes it's okay to get told no. I know when I get told no, I'm like, okay. But if I'm told no too many times, I start to break down and I start to stop being able to make decisions. Yeah.
I do love the direction you were going. Where it's like the true beauty of horror is in the friends you make along the way. It's in the love that helps you get through the scares.
It's in having, okay, so your character is alone at the base of the stairwell and someone's locking the door at the top. But there's actually like 5 other people at the table going, go, 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 behind you.
Yeah. Yeah. They're like right there with you being like, check if there's a pin. Is there a way to break the chair? And because then you have an audience, but you have supporters, and collectively all of you are gonna shout at that villain when you eventually hopefully beat them. So,
heck yeah.
Okay, I want to play a quick game as we come near what I would say is we'll wrap this up. We're right about an hour now. I want to do a quick game, and I want us to just do some thumbs up, thumbs down. We like this, we dislike this when GMs are doing this at our tables, right? And we're player characters. And these are pretty broad stroke ideas, so I described them a little bit briefly here. But I just want thumbs up, thumbs down, or ayes and nays, whatever you want to do, right, for this. So a GM tactic that might be used at a table is the room seems empty. They use the word seems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
like, oh, you bastard.
Like you feel hidden with your 13 stealth roll. Like,
right. You think no one noticed you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, we need definite answers here.
A GM going, what you don't see in the other room.
I like it.
Okay, Rayna likes it. Deanna's on that miffy. And yeah.
I mean, it does kind of make it hard to play as if you don't know, but
yeah, I know who I am. I know something my player doesn't know. Wow, whoa, my character knows it. They're so smart. Like, I don't want to know personally if it's something.
Yeah.
Because I know that I will try to negotiate my way into, well, my character could know because they supersonic hearing, actually. I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but it's on my character sheet.
Awesome. A GM going, you hear this, you feel this, you know this when they tell you something your character knows or feels or hears, especially fear related.
I have bad memory. Tell me what my character knows because I don't know.
Cool. All right.
I would say in between, because I do like that you feel this, you hear this. I don't like that you are scared by or you are frightened because. I'm like, I'll let you know if I'm scared.
Adding a timer.
I hate it. I hate it.
The worst thing
It's
ever.
a great thing to add tension. I don't like it. I don't like
horror, I like it as like, but you know.
Go to sheer. If you are going to use a timer, I prefer it to be a number of rounds rather than a real life timer, because a real life timer is like, well, now I can't function and I'm going to go so much slower and everything's on fire and I'm going to die.
Cool.
The reaction is immediate. It's just, do you want it?
In the center of the room, there is a rug.
Yep.
I'm gonna blow it up.
Was that on your list already?
I'm blowing up that rug.
A GM rolling a die and not explaining.
Oh my god.
Oh yes, yes. That's the
I hate it
best
so
thing.
much.
Okay. And then I had it in my head. I lost it on my list. I was actually just thinking of it. Anyone have anything to add here for a second while I try to recall this?
Just the GM asking something in general. Just
Yeah.
Oh,
like, oh, you still have that? Yeah. No.
The question is like, so where do you keep your shield? Is it on your back? Like when they ask a very specific question, like where's your spell book?
okay.
When was the last time you saw that NPC?
Not everyone has access, but like just something as simple as like a music cue, like a music change or something.
Music change.
Yeah. You'd be like, wait, something's happening.
The one I was gonna pitch too, so building off of those, right? This one is in the era of digital role-playing games where we have access to things like online character sheets. GMs changing something in your charter sheet.
Don't touch it. No, bad. No.
I haven't had that happen.
Get your hands off my personal property.
Okay, just checking, right?
Hey.
I think that isn't real. That's probably more of a breach of like trust in that moment, right?
I feel like if I was at a physical table and the DM said, "Hey, could you hand me my character sheet?" I would love that.
Yeah. Oh, wait, last one. Feelies. Any physical object that they can provide to you. Is that something that do you find that when you are, imagine you're at a table with a bunch of friends or virtually something, spoilers for Spelljammer, every day I have to wrestle with myself as to when I'm going to mail you something. Every one of my players. Is that something that excites you or not?
Yeah.
And is that, especially
Yes!
if you must play it with fear, if that box said you're not allowed to open it until I tell you you can.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Oh, that's
yeah.
exciting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. All right.
Are you gonna send us the orb that destroys everything it touches that has the multiverse inside of it in a little black dot?
Anyway,
How many
so
fragile stickers does that get at the post office?
it's a fragile sticker that says "Do not break this open; it will end everything."
And they still
Open-
throw it in the back of the truck.
Do not open till the end of the world.
So now I want to invite us all as we come to a close here for just a second. Like, think to yourself. Let's take a minute here and just think to yourself: what's something that you would love to share with either another player at your table, right? Our audience here, or potentially to a GM about what it means to see horror at a table. What does that mean to you? What excites you about it? What advice do you have? I'm really open flooring this question, right? But it's just sort of saying, any lasting ending message that you want to share? And I can lead.
I would say consensual horror is the best horror.
Yeah.
My thought is very similar, that when there is trust and safety, there can be absolutely delicious fear.
Mhm.
Don't be afraid, but don't be a stranger. Let us know. Let us know a little bit.
Yeah. And I would add, it's, if you haven't had a chance to try it, making a character scared of something and then showing that at a table is a ton of fun. And it's a way for you to have agency over fear because you decided that. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you three, Rayna, Brandon, Deanna. Thank you all for coming and hanging out for a player panel conversation around what is it to be scared. We talked about a whole range of stuff, and we're going to have another conversation with GMs, and we're going to look at it through that lens. This conversation, automatically, I'm going to be part of that conversation. We'll be influencing that conversation. So I'm really looking forward to it. I'm especially excited to say, so why haven't you given your players something in the mail that makes them scared or excited? Because it seems like that was a good reaction from the players here.
Yeah.
With that being said, thank you everybody for coming and watching the show. We really appreciate you coming and hanging out for a week of Spooky Week. Stay tuned. Each day we're trying to release another show that is spooky themed in some way, shape, or form. Really tune in for Thursday when you get to watch Brandon here run an incredible game where a group of us play as little kids running around.
I am the only one here who doesn't know what happens in that game. Because
And-
everybody else was
Unstuck.
It was so much fun. Otherwise, stay tuned. We're also doing a kind of a Halloween themed, just off book Spelljammer game on Wednesdays. And additionally, later on in the week, we're going to have a chance to watch a one-shot game of The Witch is Dead. And so please come and check it out. Thanks again for hanging out, and we'll see you ghost or not next show. Leave me alone. I'm workshopping that. We're cutting this.
No, don't cut it.
Everybody go
Leave
quiet.
this.
Look cool for a minute. Thanks everybody for coming and hanging out. See you later.
Nice.
Yay.